Extension talks are underway for Kalen DeBoer.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. We write inside the Huskies of Fan Nation Sports Illustrated. You can check out all our written work over there at si.com/college/Washington. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs will find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockdowncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Lars Hanson, we're on our way back from Kalen DeBoer's Monday press conference. And with so many jobs open around the world of college football, we've seen that most notably, really like the only one that Kalen DeBoer would like even, say consider, like in air quotes, leaving Washington for would be the Texas A&M job. But he did confirm after he was asked a couple of times by a couple of different people, just, hey, you signed an extension during the year last year. Is that something we might see again this year? And Kalen DeBoer said that those wheels are already in motion, thanks to new athletic director Troy Dannen. And then he added that it's not necessarily an overnight process where it can just get hashed out just that quickly. And with some of the other deals we've seen around the Pac-12, like Dan Lanning's extension, do you think that this is something that the Huskies can get done before the end of the season?
I certainly think so, because I think it's not just a matter of giving Kalen DeBoer money, right? Because right. I think, it's more than that, right? I mean, I don't think money is going to be the issue here, because I remember yesterday, I think Billy Lucci, who broke the Jimbo Fisher news, said on Andy Staples' podcast, when he was going through the list of people that might be a target for the job, he's like, do you want to go for a high price like Kalen DeBoer at Washington? It's going to cost you like $1 billion. And it's like, okay, well, it doesn't sound like, and he literally said like $1 whatever dollars. It's like, it doesn't sound necessarily like they want to go down that road, which is promising for Washington, but you still want to lock DeBoer up long term.
Right.
The thing that I think Troy Dannen, the new AD, has learned is and knows, not just learned, but knows, is he can give Kalen a blank check, but how do you keep DeBoer happy? It's putting the staff around him and giving him the resources to do that, giving him the resources from an NIL perspective, from a recruiting perspective, from all of it, right? And because that's what the other jobs are going to say. Hey, forget how much we're paying you. We can do this for you, right? Texas A&M,
right. We
have endless resources for you down here. We could do all of this. We could move your family, daughter, all that stuff. So it's a matter of what does Kalen want? What does Kalen need to be happy to stay at Washington? That's, I think, why this is going to take some time, because the thing is, Troy Dannen, we both know this, is a genuine guy. You can't force time and you can't force genuine connection. And also in the middle of a season, and especially an undefeated season, Kalen DeBoer's got other things to worry about, right? He's not thinking, oh, okay, well, instead of preparing for Oregon State, let's go to Dannen's office and hash out this contract. It's like, well, hang on. If I know I'm going to stay, I'm not necessarily worried about it, but it's a matter of just having those conversations, building that relationship together with him and with DeBoer and Dannen.
No, I agree. And one, I do. Are you proud of that one?
I kind of am, yeah.
Okay, good. All right, that's all that matters in this scenario. But I think one of the biggest things that DeBoer said that you mentioned there is it's not just about his paycheck. That doesn't seem to be the issue here, because the word that Kalen DeBoer kept using when he was talking about his status and a potential contract extension and everything else was he kept using the word continuity and kept saying it's about the continuity of the program, and that's what Troy Dannen wants to see. And so it's that they're probably just say, okay, well, how much are you going to be able to give my staff? What am I going to be able to do, through all these extra avenues that we're going to be able to, have to look into, like, with how is NIL going to help us here? What are we going to be able to do with that? And of course, Dannen is still getting his feet wet. He's been on the job for, as you're listening to this exactly a month. But I think that that's something where the fact that these conversations are already happening and the fact that Troy Dannen was so quick to just say, yeah, look at this guy we have here. He's great. He got an extension last year, but that doesn't matter. We need to do even more to keep him around. The fact that that was one of the very first things that was just kind of on the top of his list was this needs to get done again is a really great sign for not only what he is doing for the future of the program, but just kind of, as some fans might think, oh, well, if Texas A&M comes at him with an offer like this, that's going to be enough to pry him away, isn't it? Where I don't think that's necessarily the case.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And that's the thing what the main kind of point of emphasis here. It's not Kalen won't leave for more money. I mean, Texas A&M could pay him more money, or Georgia, not Georgia, like Florida or insert big time school down south can pay him more money than Washington, let's just say hypothetically. But that doesn't necessarily that doesn't make it a better job. That doesn't make it a more appealing. He's not going to chase the dollar sign, right? He's not going to the highest bidder. He's not a recruit, right? Where, hey, whoever puts the most in, it's like a posting fee for baseball, right? When players come over from the international market, it's like, hey, we're putting in this amount. Oh, well, they won the top bid. There you go. No, it's a matter of which one's the best fit. How's the relationship with the AD? Are you going to be able to pay Grubb 2.5 a year or 2 a year? Can I get a 1.5 or close to it defensive coordinator, right? What's my salary pool? Who can I bring in? And because that's what makes Kalen happy, right? That's what's gonna make him happy, because as we saw with Jen Cohen, when the budget started to get a little tighter, Jimmy is hiring Rip Rowe and a former GA. You're kind of making Moneyball hires, right? You're making low risk, high, low, not high reward, but not totally super high reward, because they weren't great names, right? They were like up and coming guys that were good people, but almost like, hey, we're going to give the intern a job starting bottom pay versus
it's a what happens here kind of job.
Exactly. And I think Kalen has certainly established himself in the first 2 years that he deserves more than that. And so I think it's the matter of Dannen thinking, okay, what's the number that we need to get to without being unrealistic? Because he's not going to get a blank check, as much as fans want that to happen, because that would just be irreprehensible for the department.
But I don't think Kalen wants that either.
Exactly. I don't either. Yep.
And that's because for Kalen, it's okay. I'll take what's fair, and I'll take what kind of, maybe what market value is, but what are you going to do for me on top of this? How are we going to be able to make this work in the Big Ten with, all of these new competitors we're going to have to go against with some of these bigger budgets, right? The Michigans, the Ohio States, the Penn States of the world, where they can compete money-wise with you in the same vein, along with being able to compete with you on the field, because Kalen has shown through his first 2 years that he's going to be able to compete on the field as long as he's the head coach here at Washington. And now the question is, how is he going to be able to sustain that success?
Right. And I think it's pretty clear he knows what that will take. And part of that is NIL, part of that is transfer portal and bringing in guys. Because I don't think, we've seen it. We've even said it, where they're not going to be like Oregon, where they're throwing money at all these high school kids. Like, it's, hey, we're going to spend the money wisely. Almost like it's like hiring the right coach, right? Where it's like, hey, we could give anybody this blank check and see Texas A&M, right? You give the money to Jimbo Fisher, you give it to Kevin Sumlin. They both
that worked out real well.
Right, exactly. So it's like you can give everybody a blank check, but that doesn't equate necessarily to true success and staying power. DeBoer has both of those. Now you just got to pay the man his money, right?
Yep. And that's all. That reference. I did. I was, we make so many great references here. I wish that sometimes we had just more of an avenue to just go down those. But we're gonna keep talking about this, because I want to just kind of, especially with moving into the Big Ten and thinking about some of these other jobs that are not necessarily going to be available, but it's just I want to talk about where does Washington stand among some of these other, I want to say top tier jobs, because I don't think that's that unfair of a statement. But first, we're going to take a second here and talk about our friends over at Jace Medical. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I. We get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits, and I'm thankful for that connection that we have. And today, I want our chat to be a little bit more personal. You can get any medication that you need, a 1-year supply of that, you can get that on Jace Medical. And you know what that means? You can bring these on extended travel, bring them on the next natural disaster or their supply chain issue. You are covered no matter what happens. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your prescriptions. And that's all possible thanks to our friends over at Jace Medical. You can go online right now at jacemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use promo code LOCKDOWN at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace. I'm thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half in order to have them. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered the antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies, and I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you'd love would like to get some peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily med, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. So, Lars, we talked about this a little bit off the air the other day, and I wanted to kind of make sure that we were able to talk about it on the air too, especially after the whole Jimbo Fisher thing, where everyone's just going to say, oh, it's an SEC job, where, this like, mid-tier SEC job is going to be what it takes to pry Kalen DeBoer away, where that's not necessarily the case. But also, I feel like with some of the dark ages we've seen in Washington football, especially over the course of the mid-2000s, what the University of Washington can bring at its peak in terms of advantages seem to be really just kind of, they kind of seem to have gotten lost in the shuffle of some of these other programs that we've seen build themselves up in that time period, like a Clemson. I don't want to say Georgia in that same vein because Georgia is one of the top tier SEC schools, but we've just seen them build up into being a much bigger program over that time period. But where do you think that Washington just kind of falls in terms of like national jobs? Do you think it fits into the top 20, top 15?
I mean, I think realistically, it's surely top 15. I don't know, because when you start to go down that list, you have Notre Dame, you have
USC,
Michigan, Florida,
Ohio State,
Michigan.
Bama.
And the more you start to realize how more teams are also involved that don't even come to mind right off the top of your head, you're like, okay, what's not top, like it's not below 20, right? So I think it's in that 20 to 12 range, right? You're not totally in the top 10, but you can punch like a top 10 team or a top 10 program, but you're not you haven't had the staying power consistently, right? Especially to your point, right? You don't go 0-12 and basically disappear for a decade, almost a decade and a half, and then still say, hey, we're a blue,
and then almost disappear again thanks to Jimmy Lake.
Ooh. Talk about a dodged bullet, man. I still can't believe people were asking me if he deserved one more year. And I'm talking about legitimate people, not fans on Twitter. But with that being said, that was an incredible time. In 21 was just incredible. But I think also because if you're Washington, you realize, I'm looking at DeBoer at Sioux Falls, where he stayed there for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, somewhere in that ballpark. But the point is, he's not a guy who wins a title, jumps. I mean, he won back-to-back titles, multiple national NAIA championships. And so it's a matter of, okay, hey, when I find the right spot, I want to stay here. And then when I want to move up to the next level, to me, that's like, okay, well, what's the next level? It's the NFL. It's not a massive, bigger college job, right? I don't see DeBoer, going to Michigan in 2 years. He just doesn't strike me as that kind of guy, The question I think more is, it's not that they will lose DeBoer, it's making sure the guys that he wants to keep on the staff until they become head coaches stay on the staff, right? I think that's
right.
And when those guys
Shepherds of the world,
and Ryan Grubb, like does Ryan?
I was going to say outside of Ryan Grubb, because that's just like the big obvious one,
the easy one. But it's not just a matter of that; it's a matter of also then who do you replace Grubb with, right? Do I have the resources? Or do I have to go back down and prove that guy is the right hire and then we pay him next year? It's like, no. If I want to bring in Kirby Moore and pay him 1.5 to run my offense, do it. Like Dannen should. Those are the questions and conversations that DeBoer and Dannen are going to have, because that's where it's going to split, right? If Dannen takes the path of, well, I know you want him, but maybe we do like an under $1 million hire at offensive coordinator. He doesn't strike me as the guy who's not going to spend money, right? I mean, I remember during his press conference, he's like, no, Football is the cash cow. It is the king. It is it carries the weight. It carries the water. So there's no way Dannen would say all those things and then pull that back to say, I don't want to spend 1 point whatever on a coordinator. Let's just keep all our coordinators at like around or just under $1 million. It's like, no, pay the money. If you want to be a top 10 program, act like it and pay like it.
Spend like it.
Yep, exactly.
And I like that point a lot. And because that's where part of this conversation comes into play, right? Where, yeah, you can say, you can make an argument for a Michigan, for an Ohio State, if that job opens up and then all of a sudden it's, oh, well, their top target is Kalen DeBoer. First of all, like, of course, yeah, like we understand where that would be coming from, but also that's when you have to say, well, I'm able to have all those same benefits here at Washington, because Kalen DeBoer has repeatedly talked about, well, my family's really tired of moving. I don't really want to have to move my family again because of my job. And he talked a little bit about his daughter, Alexis, who has officially signed with the softball team. And I don't know if like that in itself is an end all be all necessarily, but I think that is a factor. And he talks about how much his family loves this area, because this is just a great area and a great place to just spend time and to live. And he seems to just enjoy that extra aspect of it. And with all those same benefits, because if this program is operating at a level of a Michigan, of an Ohio State, where they think that they can spend like that, and they could think that they can compete like that, and just look at the early returns from Kalen DeBoer, it's very clear that that's possible. Now it's just a matter of feeding into it. And I think that one of the things that this could potentially do is also vault Washington into that top 10 of just like, yeah, this is now a top 10 most coveted job in the country.
You're absolutely right. And I think the other thing within that vein, because, yeah, it's not like Alexis is going to keep him from turning down $110 million over 10 years, right? So if Ole Miss says, hey, we want you to replace Lane Kiffin or whoever Tennessee's got a good coach with Heupel now. But I mean, there's a number of schools where, aside from Texas A&M, because that's the easy one to point out right now. But like, actually, let's say Mike Elko goes to Texas A&M, does Duke give Kalen DeBoer a call and say, hey, we're Duke. I'm not, but I'm saying, but those are the
right. No, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
To where it's like, okay, well, what other schools would be attractive? The more you think about it, the other thing to consider, and this is not a shot at DeBoer, right? This is not in any way questioning him, but to be fair, he's only done it for 2 years here at Washington with Michael Penix, who he had the inside track on. Can he do that next year? Because I mean, imagine if you're Texas A&M or you're a big time school and for whatever reason it doesn't work, right? Or he's not able to get the staff that he needs at his next school, and it goes backwards, kind of like what happened with Jimbo, right? Where nobody really wanted. I mean, he had to go get Bobby Petrino as his offensive coordinator because Grubb told him no, and all these other coaches told him no. So it's like, okay, wait a minute. If Kalen can't have his program wherever he goes, maybe it doesn't look as good, and then now you're questioning that hire even more. So I think he's in the perfect position at Washington, right? Where he's a solid dude, solid dad, all that stuff. I think it's just a matter of he probably has 3 or 4 more years at Washington, 2 to 4 years. I'll just say that it's a range. Not just because Alexis is going to be a freshman, this coming season, but the fact that he's always stayed at the head coach level, like at Sioux Falls, for a couple of years, for about 5 years, and then move, win a national championship at Washington, and then go to Michigan, and then go to Texas or whatever.
Right.
I could see him going to Texas if Sark goes to the NFL, but not right now. In a couple, I'm saying like years down the line, those are the only kind of jobs that I could truly see Kalen moving for. But I don't even think that is still.
No, because I don't even think he moves for those jobs.
That's right.
Where he just feels so like, because the goal has always been for him, from the way that he talks and from the things that he talks about, the goal has always been to build a culture and to have that continuity, that staying power, because those are the things that he always tries to get across. Those are the messages that he pushes every single opportunity that he gets. And like, because the one opportunity where he didn't stay there 5 years is Fresno State, right? That's because he got this job at Washington. You can't necessarily turn down that job, especially when you looked at the roster at the time. You looked at a lot of the things that this job already came with. He said, okay, yeah, I'll take that job now. And this is that opportunity. because I feel like he saw a lot of those same things that we're talking about right now with this program, where it's, oh yeah, these are all the potential benefits of building a winner at the University of Washington. And clearly he's done that early on. I think that he has the ability to do that. And I think that because I don't know if he's necessarily, if that culture can be built in the same way at the NFL level. And it's not saying that he couldn't go try it, because I think he absolutely could if he wanted to. But he just feels like this is his Chris Peterson job. This is the job that he wants and he can have until he doesn't want to be here anymore. And I feel like we could end up seeing him here for a very long time.
I agree. And I think the only difference I've kind of made this point a couple of times is the difference between Chris Peterson and Kalen DeBoer is one just doesn't seem like they're going to get burnt out, right? Like DeBoer seems like a guy where he's, as the CEO, empowering his assistants, empowering the people around him. Hey, no, you run the offense. Morel, you run the defense. I will be here. I will help. But I would rather put the culture umbrella in and let the players and the coaches and everybody else execute it than have me be so nitpicky and do this and that. So yeah, I think there's certainly a case to be made where it's almost like, it's almost like more Boise State for like what Chris Peterson had at Washington, because Peterson got burnt out pretty quick at Washington. I don't necessarily think DeBoer will get burnt out. I think much like with Peterson at Boise State, he didn't have to leave until the perfect job came along. Whatever that other job may be that's not Washington, that DeBoer is going to be here for a long time until that pops up. And I don't even know if that job is existing right now.
I don't even know if that job's out there. Like, it just period.
Yep.
Just in that same vein. That was a lot of hiring talk. And that's when we come back after the break, we're going to talk about Jalen McMillan, who did make it through the Utah game healthy and seems to have an increased role, ready for him in Oregon State. But with so much hiring talk, we got to take a second here and talk about our friends over at LinkedIn, because these days every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs help find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do is add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire, much like Washington hiring Kalen DeBoer, which was just such a great fit from day one. It's almost like UW used LinkedIn Jobs, and that's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So Jalen McMillan, let's talk about some on the field stuff now. Jalen McMillan played against Utah. Didn't necessarily play a ton of snaps. I don't know if you have access to the to how many snaps he played on the PFF tracker, but he didn't have any targets. But the good news is he's out there. He made it through the game healthy, and now the Huskies just have that extra weapon where Ryan Grubb said today at his press conference that he's being ramped up. They're going to see how he's feeling during Tuesday practice, but the plan is to ramp him up and have him play an even larger role against Oregon State. And what Ryan Grubb called the McMillan's role against Utah was to get his feet wet and just kind of get his confidence back and cutting and doing all those things with his knee. And it seems like he made it through all of that okay.
He did. It looks like he played 6 snaps, which is one less than he played against Oregon and half as many as he played against Stanford. So I think it's actually the right approach to take, because in the game, they didn't need him really to be a factor, but you kind of have to get that first game out of the way to say, hey, just go run a route, just go try and do some cuts, try and get used to it without having to be relied upon to, okay, no, we need you at full go. Like, you're full go. But I think it was with the mindset of, hey, we're not going to have you out there for a ton. We're going to get you out there for a handful of snaps. Just test it out. Just see how it goes. And he seemed to be pretty fine. The ball didn't go his way, as you mentioned, but he looked gingerly in pregame, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
Not like super gingerly, because he was still
more cautious than anything else.
Exactly. I think that's a better way to put it. He was certainly more cautious. And I think now moving forward, now that if he can break that mental hurdle and say, oh, wow, I can cut on it. Now I can be a little more aggressive. And then I have a whole nother week of practice after that to confirm that. That I think is the perfect way to bring Jalen back versus, hey, let's keep him out. Hey, now you're starting against Oregon. Oh, wait.
Right.
Not so fast. Hey, made it against Stanford. Oh, never mind. Strike that. It's like, especially for what he's meant to and what he means to this program, they need him in the postseason, right? I think at this point, him and Giles are kind of like, hey, you know what? We're going to wait until you guys really need to be called upon, and then we're going to throw everything. So I think that's kind of the perfect opportunity for UW to get the younger players involved, get Jeremy Bernard some more reps, get Jalen fully healthy, get Giles fully healthy, but more so Jalen, right? Jalen is the one that kind of, we've always said, he opens up the offense like nobody else does. And that's with all due respect to Rome and Polk getting their numbers, because they get their numbers a lot easier when Jalen's up the middle.
Exactly. And just to kind of add on to that, like Giles Jackson, it feels like he's going to play this week, where Ryan Grubb, he said he was held out due to an upper body injury against Utah. And some of that might be a little bit of gamesmanship with the red shirt that they're very well aware of how that's playing out. And Giles, just according to comments the coaches have already made, he only needs to play in one of the next 2 games to have just that 4 games, and can stay under and utilize that red shirt and come back next season. So feels like they're going to play him this week against Oregon State, who has a really solid secondary, sit him against Washington State, and then have him full go for the Pac-12 championship and whatever bowl game might be on the horizon. So I think that that's something where Jalen McMillan is going to be an even bigger factor, because that's not something the coaches have even probably considered at this point, where shutting him down might have been in the conversation at certain points in time. But for the most part, it's this guy does so much for our offense, like you just said, that he needs to be out here if we want to make this national championship push, like they've shown that they're trying to do. They're 10-0. Of course they're going to do that. I know we've seen some people in the comments that are saying, oh, well, they just take it one game at a time. Well, yeah, of course, that's what they're still doing. But at 10-0, being number 5 in the CFP, you have to just consider, all right, this is what our goal is. And if we keep winning games, this is where we're going to end up. We need to be cautious. We need to be smart about some of these decisions. And that's probably one of the reasons that Jalen was held out as long as he was. Whereas, okay, we're going to try to see what he can do in this game, because he probably, they could have sent him out there for a similar just kind of role, I would say, against USC. But that didn't happen because they probably wanted to give him one more week, probably a little bit different, traveling down there, flying. Maybe your knee gets a little bit stiff on the flight. You see those kinds of things where that's something that can pop up. But getting Jalen back healthy at this time of the year would be huge, because the Pac-12 championship it's almost upon us at this point. And especially if UW wins this weekend, I believe they clinch the number 1 overall seat in the Pac-12 if they're able to beat Oregon State this weekend. Am I wrong?
No, I think that would add it, because then you would only have Washington State left, right?
Yep.
And no matter what, because everybody else is now fighting for that one. Now, had they had a loss prior to, then all that chaos would be in play. But I think if you beat Oregon State, you're pretty much guaranteed you're locking yourself as a 1 seed. And
that's not a given, as UW is actually underdogs right now in that game. They're plus 1.5 on, I believe on FanDuel. I saw those lines move not too long ago. So that's an interesting one just for Husky fans that we're going to keep an eye on this show too, as we move forward this week. But I think that this is just such a perfect time to get both of those guys back into the mix, where Oregon State has a really good secondary. Oregon State can play, they play really good defense. That's going to be such a tough environment to play into, and having both of those guys available for that game in any capacity, even if Jalen McMillan is a decoy once again, that's still just something where when he's on the field, you have to think about him no matter what. You can't just say, oh, that guy's a decoy. Oh, even if he's out here running some routes, we're not really afraid of him. No, we've seen what that guy can do when he's fully healthy, and he's a huge part of this offense.
Yeah, that's crazy, because Washington opened as a 2.5 point favorite. So the line, I think, that moved. But what's crazy is it's like, Oregon State is kind of like the little engine that could, but they're exceeding, like the engine has gone full bore. Like they found 5th gear. Like they're hitting as perfectly as you possibly could, but it's almost like
right.
I know we're not going to go into it too much, but it's like this is just a game where you just have to win by one. It's all you got to do. Like just keep the perfect record intact. Whether you lose the following week or not, neither here nor there. But like just keep yourself in the conversation. Ideally, this is a game where if you want to make the 4 and you want to be put at 4 above Florida State, beat Oregon State like you beat Michigan State. That's what you got to do. If you, and I don't think it's going to happen, but if you do, I mean, here's the thing. Tell me the rosters when you line them up side by side. Yes, Oregon State's good, but Washington's roster is far and above better than Oregon State.
Oh, I agree.
At the end of the day. So if you can get everybody on the same page for that game, win by 17 points, 21 points, that will get you a lot more cachet for the College Football Playoff Committee than just squeaking by with another one possession win.
Sure. I feel like this one's a little bit different, especially since Oregon State is in the top 10 of the AP poll now too, where just any kind of win in this game is just, that's another, not just another notch in the belt, but that's a top 10 victory. That's such a huge win that you can't at that point keep this team out of the top 4. Like I feel like that's where it has to be at this point. You got any final thoughts for us here today?
You say that now, but watch them come in at 5 one more time. There's something about that where, I mean, the entire country, the AP poll and college football playoff are in unison that Florida State is 4 and potentially 3. And it's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So just win with conviction and take that equation out of the way.
I would definitely agree with that. Lars, as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all the everydayers out there. You guys have really just done such an amazing job just interacting with us. We really appreciate everything it is that you do every day to help keep the show going. And if this is your first time here, hey, welcome. We love to have you here. If you enjoy the show, you want to make sure that you never miss an episode, please feel free to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. So that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We are there. We are everywhere. We try to get back to as many of you as we can in the comments. So please feel free to comment on this video, comment wherever you are getting this on audio only too. And again, feel free to subscribe, like the video, leave us a 5-star review, do all that. It really does help the podcast out a lot, especially when you hit that subscribe button. So please feel free to do that, and we will talk to you on